All right. We have an amazing program, and so I will get started even though there are still a few people who may be coming in. My name is Rakugo Castaldo, and I am in the Maizumi Roshi White Plum lineage out of Lansdowne, Pennsylvania, in Soto Zen Center, and I have the great honor of introducing our speakers. So welcome to the Body as Doorway in Practice. We gather here today to delve into the profound depths of Zen practice through the unique lenses of our panelists. Our discussion today covers the vast landscape of practicing with aging, disability, trauma, addiction, sexuality, and motherhood, topics that we do not often bring into the Zendo and that we should bring in much more often. We're going to be exploring how Zen practice intersects with these aspects of human experience to foster resilience, understanding, and peace. So first, we'll be privileged to hear from Reverend Gyokuden Blanc with beginning her Zen journey in the serene landscape of Minnesota, ordained as a Zen priest in 2010. Her path has been one of deep commitment, not only to the Zen tradition, but also to motherhood. Steph Blanc embodies the harmonious blend of spiritual discipline and daily life, reminding us of the profound teachings in every moment. Dr. Grace Dammann's story is one of resilience and compassion. Honored by the Dalai Lama for her extraordinary contributions to AIDS patients, her life took a traumatic turn following a catastrophic accident. Emerging from a coma after 48 days, Dr. Grace Dammann's journey of recovery has been both arduous and inspiring. Today, she serves from a wheelchair, running the pain clinic at Laguna Honda Hospital and Rehabilitation Center, a testament to the unwavering spirit of service and healing. Third is Karen DeCotis. She brings us a wealth of experience and insight from her extensive practice and teaching with Soto lineage. Ordained in 2016, she has been a lead teacher for the Bozeman Zen Center group for over a decade. Known for her humor and warmth, Karen embodies the principles of engaged learning and service. And lastly, we welcome Sue Moon, a writer, editor, and lay Zen teacher whose works have touched the hearts of many. With decades of experience in leading from the pages of Turning Wheel to her enlightening book, she provides us with invaluable resources for understanding and practice. In an enthusiastic grandmother, she also brings a generational aspect to our understanding. Together, our panelists offer experiences and insights into the embodied Zen practice. As we embark on this journey, let us open our hearts and minds to the wisdom they have to share. Let us engage deeply, ask questions sincerely, and listen wholeheartedly. Thank you to the panelists for agreeing to come.
Thank you, Rakugo. Excuse me, we're actually going to switch the order that you described, and I'll go first and Steph will go last. Thank you so much for your warm introduction, and thank you to Zena and to Anna for all the help you've given us in organizing this event, and to SZBA for inviting us to come. It's an honor to be here and to talk to all of you who are gathered. So we're all going to be talking about the body as a doorway to practice. My role is to talk about the aging body as a doorway to practice. Mysteriously, somehow, when I wasn't looking, I became 81 years old. And so there's no arguing with the fact that I'm old. And one of the things that my body knows something about is being old. My practice helps me with the challenges of aging, and aging actually strengthens my practice. So Zen teaches us, as we know, not to turn away from what's difficult. Not turning away allows me to notice what I can't do anymore and to practice acceptance. Acceptance is key. I'm surely still in denial about some things, but I can't tell you what those things are because I'm in denial about them. Age is a constant lesson in letting go. I like to quote the Theravadan teacher Ajahn Sumedho, who said the essence of Buddhism can be told in 6 words: let go, let go, let go. For example, there's driving. I haven't given up driving completely, but I try not to drive long distances or at night. But this is a big thing to give up driving, as we know. So when my Everyday Zen seminar meets in Marin County, about 45 minutes from my home in Berkeley, I find a ride with someone else. And friendships have developed in this way. It's been quite wonderful. And if I don't get a ride, I don't go. So I'm training in letting go, and I will have to let go of everything when I die. So this is really good practice. Looking for a ride brings up another training provided by old age, which is the need to ask for help. I know it's a good thing to help other people, but I used to think that needing help is somehow a little bit shameful. I think many people in our society have that feeling. And now I'm learning that asking for help can also be a gift to other people. People, including old ones, generally really like to do something useful for someone else. You get good merit for it too, if that's something you're keeping track of. And when I ask someone to open a jar for me, I'm modeling that it's actually okay to ask for help. If I'm stuck in stubborn pride and think, I can do it myself, I'm going to do it myself, that can cause problems for others. Like if I try to lift my heavy carry-on bag into the overhead rack by myself and it falls on the head of a fellow passenger, which hasn't happened, fortunately, and it won't if I keep on asking for help. All my life, I've been really fortunate to have good health and a strong constitution. I've come to expect it even as I've aged. That's how it is, I used to think. I'm one of the lucky ones. Then, about 5 months ago, my luck changed. Dizziness and breathlessness intruded, and I was diagnosed with persistent atrial fibrillation. I'm consulting with the doctors to find the right treatment, and it's a work in progress. It's not the end of the world, it's a common problem, but I find myself in new territory. I feel as though the rug has been pulled out for me a little bit. And I find myself wanting it to be otherwise and learning that, well, it isn't otherwise. It's like this. Old age is teaching me to let go of preferences. I have a great opportunity to choose what is given to me instead of fighting it. As we know, suffering plus pain equals resistance. I mean, suffering is pain plus resistance. Got that? Formula 1. I was at Green Gulch Farm in Marin County in the 1980s when Zen teacher Isan Dorsey, former drug addict and drag queen, who became a wonderful Zen teacher, gave the Sunday Dharma talk in which he publicly announced that he had just been diagnosed with AIDS. It was a death sentence back then. He told us that at first he was really upset and he thought, why me? Then he thought, why not me? So that was the first time I ever heard anybody use that phrase in response to bad news, why not me? And I was very moved. I remind myself of that now. Old age can encourage me to let go of concern for self. I'm not going to be around that much longer anyway. I'm not trying to build myself up anymore, my character or my career. It's time to take myself apart. I would like to give myself away. And my earrings, too, at least the really heavy ones. My life and my body don't really belong to me anyway. As Thich Nhat Hanh taught us, I am made of everything that's not me, everything that's nurtured my body for 81 years. When I die, I'll be giving body and breath back to the universe, ashes to ashes, stardust to stardust. So why not practice now? Once a week, I visit a friend with severe dementia. We became dear friends years ago in our Everyday Zen Sangha. She's glad to see me, though she doesn't know my name or what past we share. But she knows me, and she knows that I come as a friend. We snack on apple turnovers that I bring her from her favorite bakery. I tell her about our last Everyday Zen meeting, and she doesn't know what I'm talking about, but I think she likes to hear the words she used to say herself, like Bodhisattva and Heart Sutra. They have an echo for her. We walk up and down the hall holding hands. It makes me sad that she's lost so much. But I never used to be able to walk up and down holding hands with her before. And now, because we're both letting go of many things, it's easier to be with her and her losses than if I was young, I think. I'm getting used to this falling away. But my point is not that aging is so horrible, and thank goodness we have our practice to help us with it. There are some great things about living in an old body, and an old body can help us practice. An old body likes to sit. An old body likes to walk slowly. An old mind likes to be here now. An old person, at least this one, really appreciates the community of Sangha. It's a good time to explore the spiritual side of things. It takes less to make me happy now. A cup of green tea can do it. An old woman has a lot to give. An old priest can give the precepts. An old laywoman can sew a rakusu for a friend. An old woman can join 1,000 grandmothers and demonstrate for the climate, or write postcards for the election, or tell the people she sees that she loves them. I can model gratitude for this precious human birth, especially to the young ones in my life. I can encourage others. I can stand up as straight as I can, even if that's crooked. An old person, an old Buddhist, can give herself away by loving. Thank you. So now we're going to hear from Grace Dammann, who I've known for many years, and she's going to talk to you about just this is it.
Thank you. Great. My name is Grace Dammann, and I'm speaking today as a disabled woman and the mother of a very disabled child on this very body as a portal for coming into living with just this is it. I've known each of these women for many years. Sue and Karen and I are in a Dharma study group that started meeting 32 years ago this week, I think. Who knows? But anyway, something like that. And we meet every other week or every month, whenever we can all get together. And we love it. We love it. And I've known Steph ever since she came to Zen Center, way before her first child was born. I was living at Zen Center at Green Gulch, and Phil Schrader and I got a call one Saturday morning after Zazen asking if we would consider fostering an at-risk child who had been prematurely born, weighed 3 pounds, was born at 32 weeks. She was then 3 weeks old. And of course we said, let's go meet the child. So we went up and met her, fell in love, came back, went to the Zendo, and thought, if not us, who? Of course we'll say yes. So 5 days later, 5 days worth of unplanned pregnancy, we became parents. Can you imagine that? And then we were parents. Sabrina is now 30 years old, turning 31, and she wasn't supposed to survive for more than 6 months. Miracles really do happen. He's a force of nature. So fast forward to 2008, and I picked pre-teenage Sabrina up at school in San Francisco. We were rushing for dental appointments, and of course we were late. So I decided to drive in the middle. And of course we were separated from oncoming traffic only by those little flimsy cone, those yellow cones. You know what those look like? Anyway, this was the Golden Gate Bridge then. Sabrina was sitting in the front seat next to me, and Mac, our service dog, was right in the well. And near the Marin end of the bridge, the Golden Gate Bridge, somebody went into atrial fibrillation. We just heard Sue talk about that. Passed out at the wheel, came across 3 lanes of traffic, ricocheted off the car in front of me, and then hit me on the driver's side. Anyway, to make a long story short, the bridge was closed for a couple of hours. We sent in a helicopter. They flew me by helicopter to a hospital in the East Bay, and they took Sabrina and Mac to care in Mill Valley. Anyway, they got out of the hospital luckily. One day later, I had to spend 13 months in the hospital, 48 days in a coma, prolonged coma, with multiple breaks and tears everywhere. But, to make a long story short, I then moved to Green Gulch, where I was cared for by the community, mostly in the form of Bush Rader, bless her heart. And I've lived there. And I lived there for about 5 years after the accident. Then I moved to assisted living at the Redwoods, which is a senior living facility in Mill Valley. I have a body that has been there and back. When I finally read my hospital records as a physician, I realized how lucky, how amazing it was that I even survived at all. This life is not mine, it belongs to the forces of the universe. Anyway, at one level, one might say, how unlucky. I can't walk, I can't use one hand at all, and the other hand only a little bit. I am what you call functional paraplegic. I'm quadriplegic. I can pee on my own, but I can't wipe myself after I poop. So I really have to plan carefully when I go to work. Think about it. I can't serve. I can't, which I learned to do at 50. I can't do any of the procedures that I did as an AIDS physician. So of course I'm not. I'm a pain doctor now. But this body still works. I can't live alone, and this is just my reality. But I've got to say, practice has been my lodestar ever since the accident. I am so glad, as you all know, that I sat through many days forth of long sessions. I learned at that point that nothing lasts forever. Nothing lasts for more than a nanosecond. Even great pain, great sorrow, great joy, it all disappears. And I learned that the biggest agent of my own suffering was my own mind. You all learned that too. I had 18 surgeries during that year that I was in the hospital, and I missed a year of my daughter's life. And I spent a lot of time alone, wondering what came next. But what I remember from thinking back on all of that is the first glorious bath that I had 3 months after admission, when my Chinese CNA whisked me away without my permission, nobody knowing, and just plunked me into a bathtub. Man, I can remember the exquisite feeling of that first drop of water on my back. I can remember how much love I felt emanating from that sponge when she washed my body. It was just, and that's what I remember. That and the wisteria that was blooming right outside my window that I was desperate to go and touch, but I could certainly smell. And I felt totally blessed by the vitality of life, and totally, which I still feel today, though not with such intensity, not quite as clearly as I did then. And I felt the wonder of life in getting to choose exactly what and for whom I wanted to live. Just before discharge from the hospital, I met again and conversed again with His Holiness, the Dalai Lama. That meeting revitalized my commitment to practice and made totally clear what my purpose in life from that point would be. I met him when I gave a speech at a luncheon, which he was the honored guest. Now, why I had ever agreed to give this speech is just because my brain was mush. I had to be discharged from the hospital to go to the Ritz-Carlton in San Francisco. And the whole time I was in the hospital, I spent preparing this talk, about a 10-minute talk. And when I first got into the hospital, I couldn't string 2 sentences together, much less 2 thoughts. So the me of today thinks, you agreed to give a 10-minute talk. You got to be kidding. Really got to be kidding. So I went to the hospital, the Ritz-Carlton, and was struck by the flowers, the tonkas, the beautiful women, the fruit, the vegetables, the great food. After all, I'd lived in a sterile, green environment for 12 months at that point. I was in bliss, totally in bliss. By the smells, the sight, wanted to touch everything. It was very inappropriate. I'd go up to anybody whose dress I loved, and I've got to touch your dress. Will please let me touch your dress. And I thought, Fu kept shepherding me along, tried to get me to go up on stage because it was my turn to try to speak. And I thought, that was fine. But I watched His Holiness then come up on the stage, and I thought, oh my God, my bliss turned to horror. I thought, he is going to die right here on the spot. His breathing was heavy. He appeared to be in heart failure. I got so concerned about him that I forgot anything about my job. And he obviously had the same reaction to me. He'd met me once before, and we'd had a very wonderful conversation. But at that point, I was totally able-bodied. Now I was completely dependent. So he would come over and adjust my microphone so that I could be better understood. And he just kept finally he had to ask for tech support, and he asked the tech guy to come up and adjust my microphone. And I, meanwhile, kept going over code blue scenarios because he was not going to die on my watch. Not on my watch was I going to let His Holiness die. I hadn't done a code blue for 2 years, but nonetheless, I was desperately trying to remember what I should do. Anyway, I forgot that he had Secret Service agents up the yin yang that were totally schooled in what to do. I was not the first in line by any means. So he nuzzled my head and stood close to me. So I gave my speech. And in that moment of mutual appreciation, apparently we lit up the room with our total caring for each other. I decided that all the trouble that he faced in his life, if he was able to have that kind of equanimity, joy, good humor, wonderfulness, then practice must be worth a lot. Now, I had lived at Green Gulch for years. You would have thought that I'd gotten the message, but no, I had to keep getting it repeatedly. So I decided from that point on that I made another commitment to the practice. And I thought, if he can do this, the world would be such a better place. We all did that. So when I became desperate with my cognitive and behavioral losses, I could never think of suicide just because life wasn't mine. Life clearly wasn't mine to take. It was mine to live, mine to give. And what turns me on right now is how I live day to day. The dinner I had last night, for example, was exquisite. Each bite was so exquisite. I love them. I I love to eat. Personally, I confess I love to eat. And I love watching my friends like Sue get older, asking the critical question that never gets to be too old, which is, what can I do with this one precious life? Luckily for me, it's what I'm doing right now. I'm a physician, I'm a Dharma practitioner. Those two roles feed each other and feed me. And I'm blessed by a partner and lover who makes my life complete. So, what you had to say, we never can know what the future will bring. We can worry all we want about how our life is, or we can just live it. Just absolutely live it. Just say yes and live fully into what is. Everything does change always. We know that. And with that opens the real possibility of love and compassion, not because we know that they'll bring us. Absolutely not. Just do it. We show up. We learn to love. We take vows that ensure that we'll continue loving. We do it because that's our gift to each other, to ourselves, and to the world at large. Just do it. Just say yes. Just live into your life. Thank you. And now we're going to hear from wonderful Karen.
Thank you, Grace, and everyone. I like to eat too. When I was preparing this, the idea was I was going to talk about trauma. And as ideas accumulated, I realized there's too many stories to tell. What the real trauma was about was my own mind and system and temperament. So I'm going to start there. Even as a little kid, my temperament was one of very high anxiety. I was sensitive, restless, reactive, and constantly searching for emotional connection. As a learner, I was easily frustrated, and in general, I was difficult to soothe. My mom told me a lot about not being able to soothe me. I did not learn good self-soothing, but it was really needed. I had sensory issues, and for most of my life, I have cried a lot. I always had a great spiritual longing. When I was about 7 years old, I wanted to become a Carmelite nun. Some of you may know what that is, silence and great stern behavior. At 16, I taught myself yoga from a book. So there was this temperament that was going on. In addition to that was a longing to be seen and loved and adored, coupled with the fear of, please don't look at me. I don't want to be seen. I don't want to be mocked or hurt. So there was always this keen sense of shame lurking because I might expose myself to be awkward or silly or a monster. So I had both this big personality where I was bold and loud and did things, and then suffered a lot of reactivity to it, shame and being fearful. One of the influences that I think helped prepare me for Zen practice was in college. I was in the theater. And in Boston in the late 70s was a really radical time. And my teachers had been working with a Polish theater person. His name is Jerzy Grotowski. And he valued the physical form, the body, as the necessary instrument for expression. So when I was training, we did a lot of lengthening and widening and vocalizing and movement and emoting, a lot of emoting. I was in heaven. I love that part of it. Performance, not so much. I always got nervous. But Grotowski's work taught me a lot about myself and how much energy I was carrying, how much difficulty I was having just existing. And his work, there's this quote that describes it that I think relates to Zen practice, that Grotowski's work was the opportunity for what could be called integration, the discarding of masks, the revealing of the real substance, a totality of physical and mental reactions. This opportunity must be treated in a disciplined manner, with a full awareness of the responsibilities it involves. So I like that very much. But this was a period in my life where the longing to be seen and the fear of being seen was really pronounced. I mean, I was performing. I loved it and I hated it. I endured because I kind of have an animal body. I have a lot of strength and a strong constitution, coupled with this incredible sensitivity and shame. And recently I realized the way I would describe it now is I lacked a strong internal structure to both concentrate or regulate, and I couldn't trust my own instincts. I followed people even though I looked like a leader. I made a lot of difficult choices, harmful choices. I definitely self-medicated a lot with food, relationships, substances, sex. I was looking to connect to myself, of course, and I was doing it through connecting with that which was out there. When I found Zen practice, I had that feeling that many of us had of coming home. And I got to Green Gulch, and Wendy Johnson right away gave me a set of robes, which I loved wearing them. They kind of held this body together. Zazen was not easy for a long time because of this lack of concentration, kind of exposed this lack of physical ease. But the aim was clear. That was what was so wonderful about the teaching. There was posture and breath to attend to. There was chants to recite, bows to do. And I remember Blanche teaching us how to do a full prostration where you would go down, and she taught us to touch our head 3 times, Buddha, Dharma, Sangha, and then lift our hands. So I enjoyed all this choreography. My body learned serving, sewing, cooking, stacking wood, and this soothed my body, soothed my mind. I had something to do that was both engaged, but somewhat I could perform. I could show that I was capable. It took a while for Zazen to do this for me. Sesshin helped because, you know, as Grace talked about day 4, you exhaust all your escape routes, right? There's no way out. And so I would eventually let go and find that joy and bliss of just being embodied. I still cried. I still endured all these mind states of shame and unworthiness and not feeling safe, but I persisted. So the question that was my life's question, but it was never quite conscious until, I have to say, really recently, how to reside in my own body with love and acceptance and safety, how to stay here. But it drove my life. And the beauty and consistency of being in Zen practice, of doing the forms, of being with the Sangha won out. And this deep physical expression of peace and the possibility of peace built confidence, safety. They were growing in me. And this basic sense of all rightness after all those years. One time I was in the Dokusan hut at Berkeley Zen Center with Maylie Scott, and I was having one of my emotional, dramatic, burning questions, and she couldn't soothe me, and I couldn't soothe myself. So she popped up and said, "Get up, let's bow." And we started bowing, and we bowed 10, 20, 30 or 40 times. We bowed a lot. And it really made a difference. It cleared out this stagnation that Zazen couldn't touch in that moment, or talking couldn't touch. And then we had a really good laugh. And I remember laughing is a really good practice. So one thing I've learned that I think is really helpful, especially for young people, is that this flood of emotions that typically pervaded my system seemed to suggest that I was in touch with something really deep and wonderful. But in fact, it was my way of dissociating. It was like this kind of disturbed way and this dramatic way of dissociating. It didn't seem like I was out of touch, but I was out of touch with what I needed, for sure. So there was a neglect going on that I had learned in my life that I was doing to myself. So for me, I want to say that now I treat very seriously in our culture, in ourselves, how trauma, fear, neglect, neuro issues, lack of boundaries, all these sort of states we're learning more and more about can be formidable obstacles to be able to sit and stare at a wall. I think that we're all coming to some consciousness that for some of us, a skillful titration is needed in practice in order to inhabit the body. To plop someone down who has had severe trauma or great emotional upheaval and make them sit still, and that's the only practice, isn't helpful. It takes some steps and stages. So I appreciate the fullness of Zen practice with all the things I got to do, all the activities. And I got to do it with everyone, and I got to co-regulate, and everything got to be included, all my wild states of mind. So this practice allowed me to enjoy when I adopted a son. I was an older mom, and I became an adoptive parent 20 years ago to a little boy, an infant who had been abandoned on his birth. And he had a deep trauma, and I could meet him and hold him and learn to give regulation and love and safety to him after having learned it through Zen practice, for which I'm very grateful. So I'll leave it there. Thank you. Oh, yes, I should keep this going. Our next speaker is the wonderful Steph Blanc, who I've just recently gotten to know, and I really, really appreciate her and her practice. So let's hear from her now.
Thanks, Karen. Can you hear me?
Yes.
I'm so unpracticed at speaking on Zoom. I feel really foolish sitting in my house alone. I kicked my family out, sent them to the beach, because if my kids are here, my mind will not be on anything else. So anyway, Zoom speaking is new to me. It's not lost on me that we all share a lifetime. And it's not lost on me that my cousin is here. I recently learned that I have a Zen Buddhist priest cousin. And it made my day. I didn't know that. Hi, Matt. So my interest in the body is as an instrument of the present. And it is our portal of immediate and sustained peace. So right now, please observe your own body. Like, go ahead and look at it. Look at your own body for a moment. You can look away from the screen and look at the actual three-dimensional one with kindness, with wonder. If you can, touch your face with your own hands. This is the universe realizing itself. I wonder about this body, this middle-aged female body of Polish ancestry that somehow leapt from Catholic roots to Buddhist practice, and that has thoroughly loved practicing like a monk and like a mother. Do you wonder about your body? I vow to embody this body willingly and thoroughly. Please embody your body willingly and thoroughly. This is how we help each other and how we care for all beings. It is essential for each of us to find our place where we are. And in this way, we are truly equal. When you find your place where you are, practice occurs, actualizing the fundamental point. These familiar words are attributed to Eihei Dogen, but I don't wish to give him too much credit. He wouldn't like that, because he wants me to find my place where I am. When we find our place where we are, we manifest attunement with everything that arises. We harmonize with the great ensemble. Sharing something basic, we all have a part in this performance, and yet there is no lead role. Maybe that's bad news for the charisma types. Together we radiate a great light. But to fully appreciate this, we must find our place where we are. This body is my portal, my ticket of admission to the ensemble, my thread in the tapestry of radiant light. I'm a sewing teacher. I love words. I love the words door and portal. They're fun to say. What is a portal? I looked up the word. One of my teachers was a word lover. It's a door or an entrance, especially a grand or imposing one. And it's the whole architectural composition surrounding and including the doorways and porches of a church. My own body is the entrance of a church. Your own body, the porches of a church. Here's a story from my life of a grand and imposing door that appeared in my practice. I was 26 and utterly filled with grief and brokenheartedness, but not yet able to welcome it. I wore a constant face of unhappiness, as if others could resolve my pain for me if only they could see how miserable I was. I was recoiling from an ocean of sorrow. This great sorrow was because the most promising thing that I had found in my life, my spiritual practice itself, had blown up before my eyes. Our teacher had abused the trust of the Sangha and had to resign. The Sangha had unknowingly become the scaffolding that supported his unskillful secret behavior. He'd used his influence to manipulate, silence, or ostracize anyone who questioned him. And when truth eventually became apparent to the Sangha, it was thrown into complete crisis. Some of you here in this Zoom call were part of that Sangha, and I see you. Sadly, we've heard this similar story from many spiritual communities. I was young and had come from a home filled with the suffering of an alcoholic parent, and I needed the Zen Center. I was hopeful that Zen would teach me how to liberate myself from suffering. But for the moment, it seemed that it had exacerbated my pain. I was carrying this sorrow like Kisa Gotami is said to have carried her beloved dead child. I could not put it down. Miraculously, I'd walked through the terrible gas-filled room of spiritual manipulation and came through it trusting myself. But it cost me a lot, and I could not touch the bottom of my grief. 2,000 miles away, I was warmly welcomed by another Sangha to start over again. They'd been through it a couple of decades earlier, but was any teacher worth trusting? I had treasured my first Sangha. Could I possibly get over this loss? Here's the moment that I found my place at the depths of sorrow. I was sitting in my car in Minneapolis. I just had a meeting with my new teacher who was visiting, but found that I could hardly bring myself to look at him or to speak. It was unbearable. Didn't he see that? If he could see how much pain I was in, wouldn't it vaporize? I was agonized by the fact that I wanted connection more than anything, but had only been able to sit there, feeling my closed heart, while the chance for intimacy passed. I was back in my car, and I couldn't bear it any longer. The ocean was rising within me, an ocean that takes the beach away and leaves stones in its place. My car was running, and it was time to drive away, but I could not. I put it in park and held tightly to the steering wheel. Finally, there was no place to go, no hope of passing off this terrible pain to anyone else to shake it out for me. The sobbing began. The sobbing that was the evidence of having loved something so deeply that was no longer given. The sobbing continued and continued. It went on until it was done. That is all. I was not sure what was left of me when it was over. Was it all over? I drove. Where was I going? I drove to a thrift store because half my belongings were in the back seat, because I wanted to renounce everything. Spiritual practice was a sham. I was a fool to have trusted anyone. I unloaded all the stuff. It was all just an embarrassing testimony to my existence, and I wanted nothing of it. Then, inexplicably, I parked the car and walked inside the thrift store, Value Village. What happened next was the birth of a new consciousness. I don't know who to thank, but I walked to the glass case at the counter, where my eye was drawn immediately to a round blue ring inside the case, as though beckoning me with a magnetic pull. Iridescent, opal, the earth. Oh, the earth. Immediately, I knew the ring would fit my finger, but not with my familiar consciousness. There was a new consciousness that was asking, "Will you?" And my own rebirthed consciousness replying, "Yes, yes, of course." I asked a person, "May I see that ring?" I put it on and she said, "Wow, it looks like it was meant for you." It's lovely being verified by a stranger. Then, as mysterious as the bottom of the well of sorrow, came the joy that goes with being fully and voluntarily engaged, embodied. It was as though the whole loving universe had reached for my hand and shown me my place. This life has been completely given through immeasurable toil and care by my mother, by Dogen's mother, by the last person who pelted me with insults, and the last one that I mistakenly hurt. If God can arrive here, if everyone shares this light, then it is appropriate to respect the body, this body. Welcome it, treasure it like the rare jewel it is. Cut from the mystery, a strip of the ancient tapestry itself. Finally, we'll have to let go of this body, each of us, all of our stuff unloaded, even our beloved child who has died. So, my goodness, we must love it thoroughly while it's our turn to love. Love it like you love a just emerged monarch butterfly, like you love a blossom, a bird song. What is your life but a bird song? This tired body and its sorrows, they are just waiting to climb into a warm lap. Climb in! The posture of meditation offers a warm lap and swaddling robes, no mistake, and a circular door made by the left hand resting on top of the right hand with thumb tips gently touching, a portal of welcome. When your sorrow finds its way into your warm lap, mountains bow deeply and the whole universe smiles. I vow to love this body, which is our body, to manifest love by loving, to contribute love to this wild situation. Manage just that, and the world of the 10 directions rests in your grandparental lap. Thank you.
Thank you, Steph and Karen and Grace, for your loving messages of practice and the body and being here now. Thank you so much. We're going to have a 5-minute break. So we will be back and starting our question and answer period at 1:25. So come back very soon. We'll see you in a few minutes. Going to monitor the questions and call on people from the chat and do the question and answer. Thank you, Karen.
as soon as I get some from Zena.
Yes,
Right.
being relayed.
So please feel free to ask a question, direct a question, make a comment.
And there's one there for you, Karen. Just let me know if you can see it.
Yes. I'll read this. I have a question for Sue or Grace. I'm still in denial. I love being 75 and don't know when I'll admit being old. The kidney disease required things of me, but it is the shoulder surgery changing my life. All my time is taken up with my body, except I still have to work for a living. Something is changing as a result of these two physical problems. I think it's better. How can I welcome it? Can I receive this change and still work to regain my whole body? What is this? How do you find equanimity with these losses? Grace or Sue, or both of you, feel free.
Well, I would say, for one thing, those are hard losses, and that what I'm beginning to discover is that there is something new about the losses in a way, not the losses themselves, the fact that they are losses, but the changed circumstances are something new to meet in a way. It's a way to keep your life fresh. Oh, this is happening and I wasn't expecting this. How can I adapt? How can I make an adjustment to this and somehow integrate myself with this other circumstance? So the challenge is a kind of freshness and a way to fully feel alive. I would just add that note, and you probably have something you might want to add, Grace.
Yes, I do. I think first you have to grieve. I think grieving is a very, very important part of the process, because only if you've gone to the bottom of the well with sorrow. I mean, I remember what it felt like when I lost my best friend, which was my body. I mean, my body had been all my life my best friend. And I recognized that I just lost it. And I needed to grieve. And so luckily I was able to do that. And I did that some in the Zendo, some with Fu, some with Sabrina, mostly by myself. But it was coming to terms with what is so that I could fully embrace what is. Because until I could fully embrace it, I couldn't move to the next step. So I would just say, be sure you're surrounded by grief. Be sure you've got people who are just willing to listen, to let you cry. Let yourself cry.
Good afternoon. It's wonderful to be here. And it's so great to see Grace and Steph and all of you who I know, many of you. I will be 75 this year, and it's certainly changing. Something is definitely changing. We just had a workshop with our ex-resident teacher, Tonin O'Connor, who just turned 92, and she is still going strong. She's still teaching and driving herself and doing everything. She doesn't want to have any help. So but she says she has to learn to accept help now. Anyway, I heard a very sweet story where somebody saw an old man falling and quickly ran to help him up. And he was just smiling very sweetly and said, "You know, you're really lucky if you reach this age, because not everybody has this privilege." So that feels really good. And I'm thanking you so much. I mean, for me, it's the body is now also a very wonderful place to practice with, and also for I have a lot of people in the Sangha who have ailments, who are really difficult pain, and I'm lucky I don't. But I need to be able to work with them and to have compassion for that. So I'm glad that this is happening. And thank you very much for this workshop. It's very well received.
So I thank you both. And I have here's the thing. I expect to recover from the shoulder surgery. None of the medical people have said anything other than that. So I can't grieve over it. I can just be like, oh, right now I can't. I just finally got to drive a car again. But I can't ride a bicycle or, and it's like, so it's all about keeping the future open. And the kidney disease, it was funny because where was I with Tonin when the kidney disease was new for me? And she said, oh yeah, I've had it forever. It's not a problem. And so I'm on this edge, which is do not be afraid. And I'm not sure if grieving, I'm not sure. It's like I'm also in Zazen starvation because I need to sleep so much. But oh, great. Do you know that we know each other?
Yes.
Okay. I just had to know that. It's been so long. Yeah. And it's like, so what did you say? Just this is it.
Just this is it.
Yeah.
And is your life.
Yeah. I think I can do that.
Put it on your lap as Steph suggested. Put it on big lap.
Thank you.
Everybody else does it. Do it the way you do it also, because each of us has timing and our own way of experiencing the losses. Thank you.
Thank you both.
Thank you, Shodo. Here's one in the chat. Here's a question. So often in our society, women are treated as only bodies. We are sexualized and often assumed to be a possession. How can we embrace an embodied practice while recognizing that being embodied has a dangerous shadow side in American society, both in and outside of practice centers?
Steph, I'm wondering if you might want to respond to that. I don't mean to be putting you on the spot, but
It's okay. No, I sympathize with this question. That's my question too. Getting loud sometimes, being angry, I think is really useful sometimes. Don't be afraid when anger is expressing, like when not being treated well. When I was a child and living with an alcoholic parent, I wanted to be treated better. And there were times when I was having angry fights with God about that. So my parent was not available. He was unconscious. So God, you talk to me about this. The rest of you, everybody, like we're all involved in this thing. So it's always welcoming first, welcoming what's happening, because that I need to find my place where I am to be powerful. But once I find my place where I am, I might have something to express. Anyway, that's what came up for me.
Yes, good.
Out.
Thank you.
the body. That's the loving our bodies is, as you were speaking of, Steph, is kind of the opposite of treating the body as an object. So it isn't a contradiction to really pay attention to the body and honor the body. That doesn't mean that we're objectifying the body.
Well, the culture has not trained us to love our bodies. Oh my, it's the opposite, isn't it? So that's been something to learn that has not been offered in the culture. That's where the hands to the face, or feel your feet on the earth. The earth is important to me.
Yeah.
Thank you. Another question. What does the monk learn from the mother? What does the mother learn from the monk?
Love the question. What does the monk learn from the mother? Oh my goodness, the lap, the lap, the lap, the lap, the warm lap. Come into my lap. Hello, honey. Come here. The cuddles, the physicality. Oh, the embrace. I had to be taught how to hug by a teacher, a high school teacher, a high school English teacher. Thank you, Peggy, my high school English teacher, for teaching me the physicality of mother. So that's what the monk has learned from the mother. What has the mother learned from the monk? Oh, sit down and feel the earth. Feel the butt touching the earth. The earth is peaceful and always peaceful and is always there supporting. Stop and come into the body and feel the peace that is available. Feel the power of the warm hands to the own face. When the insults are flying in the vicinity, go find a quiet place and put your own hands on your cheeks. Thank you for the lovely question.
Wonderful. Thank you. This is an appreciation and also a statement that I'll read. Thank you all for your beautiful, heartfelt presentations. I was particularly struck by Karen's discussion of her temperament because with some differences, for example, I was able to self-soothe, or perhaps self-control might be a better description. My mother said I was a good girl. I experienced the same longing to be seen, to be heard, and the same deep desire to remain hidden, with all the brilliance and shame that comes with all that. And I deeply appreciate the sentiment that we need to accept where people are at. For me, work with a therapist over many years has also been incredibly fruitful and helped strengthen the base upon which I can sit zazen. Yes, thumbs up to that. I had a very good girl situation going on, good student, intelligent. I was reliable. I was friendly. I was all these wonderful things. And I was churning with this unease that took a long, long time, even years after I started Zen practice. And I really believe that for us in this culture, given even the last question, or the one about our bodies as objects and something to be feared because of the danger, in this culture, we are, I believe, adding in some elements that are particular for what we need, particular for women, particular for older people, particular for people who are coming into some kind of psychological awareness of what might have been traumatic, what might have been missing, what might have been longed for, instead of covering it over, no bypassing, no ignoring, everything in is what I say. And therapy helped me a lot when I had a terrible betrayal that would be another story and its own presentation. But between Zazen, therapy, Sangha, and breathing into this body and having some sense that letting go of the story and really embodying it is very relieving, very helpful. Grace, Sue, Steph, anything?
I think so. What you said is beautiful.
Complete.
Here's another appreciation. I don't know who it's from, but someone, Grace, says, first, I want to greet Grace. We trained together at Green Gulch, and I haven't seen you since your accident. I'm glad to see your face, your practice, and to hear a bit of how it goes for you. I miss you. And thank you all for your insights and inspiration about the body as a doorway to practice. Your stories were beautifully told and moved me deeply. Thank you for that appreciation. Here's a question. Hold on. How can we balance the values of effort and diligence in Zen practice with compassion for our bodies?
Good.
Wonderful question. I want to pass it to someone, but for me, the response is in the question. Exactly. Balance effort and diligence with compassion.
Balance.
But takes practice to balance.
Well,
Grace or Steph or Sue? Yes, go ahead.
it's also helpful that our teachers are getting older, so they're getting more compassionate. It's not a rugged, it's not like training camp anymore. I mean, none of the teachers are even bowing. They all are sitting in chairs, luckily. So I'm grateful for that. I'm not the only person in a chair, mobile though it is.
That's great. Yeah, I noticed that Sojin Mel Weitzman used to be the abbot of Berkeley Zen Center, who died a few years ago, and he was my teacher and Karen's. He was, when I first joined Berkeley Zen Center many years ago, he was very, I wouldn't say strict exactly, but he just thought it was really a good thing to sit still and not move, just really try not to move. And he talked about how he sat in terrible pain when he first began sitting with Suzuki Roshi, and he learned to be able to do that. Anyway, I remember listening to a talk of his that he gave at the end of his life. I think he already knew he was dying when he gave this talk. And anyway, it was completely different. It was very gentle and soft-spoken about how, well, you might need to move. It's fine to move if you have to move. And I'm not saying either one that he was wrong before, but it was a much, much gentler and more compassionate attitude towards the body and the body's comfort and the amount of discipline you should exercise on your body to, kind of whip it into shape or just try to balance what really works. And so I think it is. And again, I think different people have different balance points. And I know some people, I remember one person who had to sit in a chair for a while because of an injury, and she wasn't able to bend her knee properly for Zazen posture. And I remember her telling me, God, it's so hard to sit in a chair. I really miss my pain. And because it keeps me awake and makes me pay attention. And I thought, whoa, well, you can have, I don't know. I mean, different people, different attitudes. It's really amazing and interesting.
And I remember Steve Stuckey giving the whole Sangha the greatest gift when he came to Green Gulch and talked in the yurt. And he talked all about his cancer. It was his last public talk, I think. Am I right about that? I think it was. Anyway, it was so touching, so moving. And he was just completely himself. He said he was having trouble. Lane helped him, his wife. And it was wonderful, wonderful, wonderful to have all of it out in the open.
Mm-hmm.
I hope that's the beginning to the response to that question. Thank you. Should we go to the hand raised, Zena? And then there's 2 more questions in the chat.
Yes.
Hi, Mary.
And Mary. Hi, Mary.
Oh, hi. Sorry, I'm not showing a video because I got up really late and I'm still in my bathrobe.
Bathrobe is welcome here.
Yeah, well, you want to see? All right.
Yeah, absolutely.
Since I already said it.
Be great.
Look at that body.
You like these pajamas?
Love it. We love it.
Nice
Anyway, I wrote this in the chat, I think, but I don't understand exactly how to get it through. So thank you all anyway. Thank you very much. And I'm not going to go on and on about that because I don't want to take up too much time, but I'm really, really thrilled to hear all of you and to meet you a little bit, Stephanie. I don't think we've met. Anyway, what came up for me particularly is what about aggression? Aggression can be good. women can be aggressive, and we're so, I don't know, judged, I guess, about it. And that's true in practice in general, I think, for men and women. It's often, we don't, we talk about anger as it's bad and toxic and all that, but we don't talk about aggression. And I think that, and I'm feeling it now, right? This is aggressive. I have this aggressive energy. I used to be a lawyer. I work with lawyers. I like my aggression in a lot of ways. And I would like us to talk about it. And I want to say one thing, which is years ago, Grace, you may have been there, I don't remember. We had a retreat, a staff retreat at Green Gulch. And we had some woman came in and sort of led us, and we did singing together in rounds. We did various things. And there was this exercise where there was a square marked off in the, I call it the Gaitan, whatever you call it in Cloud Hall, the entry. Anyway, there's a square marked off. And then we all got into the square. I was thinking it was like a boxing ring. We all got into the square, and the idea was to be the last person inside that square. And so to push other people out and do whatever, and to be the last person. And I loved it. And I was the last person. And I think I shoved Fu out. I'm not sure. But what I remember was that feeling, and I think I was accurate, but maybe it's my thing, which of course is a woman's thing. Anyway, I felt judged, like that there was something wrong with me for enjoying it so much and being so willing, because I pushed lots of people out. It had nothing to do with food, but being so willing to be aggressive and to push people out and to enjoy it. And so I just would like you to comment about that.
I looked up the word aggressive just so we can be clear about what the definition is. May I share that?
Yes.
Aggressive, ready or likely to attack or confront, characterized by or resulting from aggression. Pursuing one's aims and interests forcefully, sometimes unduly so.
Yeah, see that definition is negative a lot. And it isn't necessarily a negative thing, aggression. It can be, but it isn't necessarily. And I think that especially when women exhibit some kind of energy, that it's seen as wrong.
Yeah, I'd like to speak to that aspect of it. I think, and the definition said sometimes it can be unduly. So not always. I mean, even the definition allows for it in a way to be okay, but it's definitely a gendered, our attitude towards it is very connected to gender. And I believe that's changing, and you bringing it up, Mary, as you are now, and expressing your aggressive self with perhaps no harming intent. You're still trying to not harm others, but you're being aggressive in the sense of being really assertive and forceful. That is a good feminist thing to show, well, it's okay to do this too. Yes, women can be this way, and they don't have, I mean, women get called bad names when they're aggressive, and men don't. And this is, of course, gross generalizations, and men don't tend to get called bad names for being aggressive in that way.
I think in me, it all depends on my intent. If my intent is pure, which often it isn't, given I'm not pure intent around feeling my oats, so to speak, then it's one thing. But it's hard. I need to go back to school on that one, because I managed to find a profession that I could do with aggression. It's fine to be aggressive as a doctor, really, to just go down the loophole, be persistent, be courageous, be formidable on behalf of the patient. That doesn't say anything about aggression in my own life.
Mm-hmm.
Well, thanks, Mary. I think there's no blame here. It's about intention. And I think aggressive energy, is something we feel in the body. And there's nothing wrong with it. It's like if we judge it, then it becomes a judged thing. It's what we do with it. And I think it's marvelous energy. It gets stuff done. So if we hold it with some confidence and wisdom and knowing that it may pass as well, we can make good use of it.
It's very important for working for social justice, for example.
Well, there's a little tiny example. I just unmuted myself that occurs to me that, if there's a buffet kind of thing, and you walk into this room where the buffet is spread out, say after an ordination, there's a reception, and everybody is standing back away from the table. I find that irritating. And what I do is often I just say, okay, I'll start. And I go and pick up a plate and start. And then everybody comes. And part of me is irritated. Why should I be the one? It's been out there for 5 minutes and you're all milling away 10 feet away from the table. What's wrong with you? And I don't know. That's a mini kind of aggression, but I don't think of it as bad. It's the judging on my part is bad. It's unfortunate, but there's nothing wrong with some energy. I mean, it's mixed, but anyway, I guess partly, the way I've been responded to as a lawyer, it's something that troubles me.
But now you're getting a response of great inclusiveness. So you can just be here now, as Steph reminded us, in the lap of Buddha. And your aggression is welcome. We have a couple more questions, but we're past the 10-minute mark. Let's see, one more question. There's one, it might really open up a can of delicious worms, but I just want to mention it, and then we'll go to the hand raised, and then we'll close up. One was about, this is a woman-centered discussion, but why aren't men curious about our experience? And it echoes another question further up. It's interesting. I have one quick response to that. One time, Reb Anderson said to me when I said I was new in Bozeman and only men were coming to the Zen group, and I complained about it to him. I said, only men. It's me and a bunch of men. He said, oh, don't worry. That's good. The women will always come, but it's good if you have some men there. Meaning that the women, he was really lifting up women to say, we are willing, we will practice, we will show up. And I just want to thank everyone for showing up. That's a very good question, but it's a big sociological conversation that probably we don't have time for. So Zena, can we do one more raised hand if it is brief, and then we will close?
Yes. And I believe it's
Mio-o.
Okay. Thank you. Now, let's see.
Yeah. Hi.
Oh.
Can you hear me okay?
Hi there. Yes, we can hear you. Go ahead.
Hey, hi, people I know. It's so amazing to see you. I signed up for this because the body has kind of been my portal to integration and self-discovery and grounded and everything, my whole life. And so I was a dancer, and I'm one of those people, body, mind centering, Feldenkrais, yoga, still improvisation. So one of my main practices is improvisation. I completely trust the wisdom of the body to know, just like Zazen. So I have Zazen, subtle stillness, and then improvisation, don't know mind.
Right.
So, it's not a question. It's like I'm lifting this up, in the Zen world as a Zen teacher. And I'm going to teach a class on embodiment, because when I go around and put hands on people, especially the men, it's like cement. It's like cement. I feel bad for them. So this is like a 2-year conversation, but I just I just want to lift it up. The body of wisdom.
Thank you, Mio. It is. And I will turn this now to Grace and Zena, who have closing remarks. And thank you all very much. It's a pleasure being here.
Thank you. Zena, do you go first?
No, you do, Grace.
Anyway, I think we've had a free-ranging conversation, starting with Sue, and Zen practice and the body can inform each other because they bring us into the moment. Then Karen talked about trauma and her body. Steph talked about realizing where you are, finding your place exactly where you are. I talked about just this is it. All of those weave together. And we all have been helped, probably saved by Zen practice with its focus on the body, posture. It acts as a container. I would say all of us agree to that. And I think we're so happy to have done that. We've had a wonderful time preparing and getting to be with each other. And I hope it continues, because this kind of conversation is much needed from my perspective inside of Zen circles. Thank you. And Zena, we are so pleased with you, Chris, Anna. Thank you for all the help you've given us. Thank you for your wisdom, realizing that this is a diversity and inclusion issue, that women should be talked about as we get to talk about it. I, for one, am just so grateful that you've organized this. Thank you.
I would just like to say thank you so much to all of the panelists. Thank you so much to the attendees for joining today. I would like to bring to your attention what's in the chat. If you would please fill out the survey, and also just give us some feedback of your experience today. We would greatly appreciate it. That helps us. Also, just wanted to bring to your attention that our next event that is happening on May 11th, and the information there again is in the chat, and also there's a link to the schedule as well. And that schedule is really great because it also has links to past recordings. And so, again, thank you so much for attending, and you all have a good rest of your day.
Thank you. Bye-bye.
Bye, everyone.
Bye. Bye.